Want to know who were the most dangerous German generals of World War II? The kind of commanders that made Allied officers lose sleep. The generals whose names appeared on enemy intelligence reports with warnings attached. The men whose decisions killed not hundreds, not thousands, but hundreds of thousands of soldiers on both sides. We have compiled a list of 5 German generals we think were the most dangerous commanders of the entire conflict. So, let's start with number 5 on our list. Number 5. Heinz Guderian. Heinz Guderian was one of the most dangerous military minds of the 20th century and the primary architect of Germany's Blitzkrieg strategy. Born in 1888 in Kulm, Prussia, Guderian served in World War I and spent the following 2 decades developing a revolutionary theory of armored warfare, where he wrote his famous book, Achtung Panzer, in which he argued that tanks, motorized infantry, artillery, and aircraft must operate together as a single fast-moving force to overwhelm an enemy through speed and shock before they could react or regroup. His ideas were largely ignored by the traditional German officer corps, but found a powerful supporter in Adolf Hitler. In 1938, Guderian was appointed commander of Germany's mobile forces and immediately put his doctrine to the test during the invasion of Poland, achieving a rapid victory that stunned military observers around the world. In May 1940, he led the armored thrust through the Ardennes forest that shattered the Allied defensive line in France, driving all the way to the English Channel in just 10 days and cutting off the entire British expeditionary force at Dunkirk. The speed of Guderian's advance was so extreme that even the German High Command ordered him to halt, fearing his panzers had moved too far ahead to be supported. Guderian ignored the order and kept moving. France fell in 6 weeks. It had held Germany for 4 years in the previous war. In the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, Guderian's panzer group drove 200 miles into Soviet territory in the first 4 days of the campaign, encircling and destroying entire Soviet armies before they could withdraw. He was relieved of command in December 1941, after withdrawing his forces to a more defensible line without Hitler's authorization, saving thousands of his own soldiers from certain death in the process. Guderian returned to service in 1943 as Inspector General of Armored Forces and was appointed acting chief of the Army General Staff following the July 1944 assassination attempt on Hitler. He was taken into American custody at the end of the war and released in 1948 without being convicted of war crimes. Guderian died in 1954 at the age of 65. What made Guderian dangerous was not just his battlefield performance. It was the fact that he created the doctrine that every other nation spent the rest of the 20th century copying. Every modern army in the world still fights using principles that Guderian developed in the 1930s. Number 4. Albert Kesselring Field Marshal. Albert Kesselring was one of the most dangerous defensive commanders of World War II, capable of holding vastly superior forces at bay with a fraction of the resources available to his opponents. Born in 1885 in Marktsteft, Bavaria, Kesselring began his military career as an artillery officer before transferring to the Luftwaffe in 1933. He commanded air forces during the invasions of Poland and France before being appointed Commander-in-Chief South in 1941, responsible for all German and Italian forces across the entire Mediterranean theater. What made Kesselring uniquely dangerous was his ability to wage war simultaneously in the air and on the ground, coordinating both arms in a way that multiplied the effectiveness of forces that were always outnumbered. When Allied forces landed in Sicily in July 1943, Kesselring managed the German withdrawal so effectively that the majority of Axis forces escaped to the Italian mainland despite Allied naval and air superiority. When the Allies landed at Salerno in September 1943, Kesselring's forces came within hours of driving them back into the sea before Allied naval gunfire stabilized the beachhead. His defensive campaign up the Italian peninsula became one of the most studied examples of defensive warfare in military history. Exploiting the mountainous terrain, Kesselring established a series of fortified defensive lines that halted the Allied advance for nearly 2 years, despite the Allies holding complete air superiority and significant advantages in manpower and equipment. His Gustav Line, anchored by the monastery of Monte Cassino, held from November 1943 until May 1944, requiring 4 separate Allied assaults and costing over 55,000 Allied casualties before it was finally breached. Even after the fall of Rome in June 1944, Kesselring continued to slow the Allied advance, keeping significant Allied forces tied down in Italy until the final weeks of the war. Kesselring was convicted of war crimes in 1947 and sentenced to death, later commuted to life imprisonment. He was released in 1952 and died in 1960 at the age of 74. Military historians consistently regard Kesselring as the most dangerous defensive commander produced by any nation in World War II. Number 3. Erich von Manstein. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein was the most dangerous offensive and defensive commander in the German Wehrmacht, combining strategic vision with operational brilliance in a way that no other general on either side could match. Born in 1887 in Berlin into a distinguished Prussian military family, Manstein demonstrated exceptional strategic ability from the earliest days of the war. It was Manstein who devised the plan to attack France through the Ardennes forest with a concentrated armored thrust in 1940, bypassing the Maginot Line entirely and striking the Allied armies from behind. The plan succeeded completely, resulting in the fall of France in 6 weeks and the capture of over 1 million Allied prisoners. In the Soviet Union, Manstein proved equally dangerous. His 11th Army captured the heavily fortified Soviet naval base at Sevastopol in July 1942, taking 430,000 Soviet prisoners in a single campaign and earning him promotion to Field Marshal. In late 1942, Manstein came within 35 miles of breaking through the Soviet encirclement at Stalingrad with his relief operation, the closest any German force came to reversing the catastrophe on the Southern Front. His most dangerous moment came in February 1943, when he launched a masterful counteroffensive against Soviet forces who were advancing confidently after their victory at Stalingrad. Manstein allowed the Soviet spearheads to overextend, then struck their flanks and rear with concentrated armored forces, destroying 6 Soviet armies and recapturing Kharkov in one of the most brilliantly executed operations of the entire war. Soviet losses in the Kharkov counteroffensive exceeded 52,000 killed with a further 323,000 wounded or captured. Manstein was dismissed by Hitler in March 1944, following repeated disagreements over defensive strategy, and never commanded in the field again. He was convicted of war crimes in 1949 and served 4 years before being released on health grounds in 1953. He died in 1973 at the age of 85. What made Manstein uniquely dangerous was his ability to be equally lethal, whether attacking or defending, at the operational level or the strategic level. No commander on either side could claim the same. Number 2. Erwin Rommel Field Marshal. Erwin Rommel was the most personally dangerous general of World War II, a commander whose speed of thought and action consistently overwhelmed opponents who had more men, more equipment, and better supply lines. Born in 1891 in Heidenheim, Württemberg, Rommel won Germany's highest military decoration, the Pour le Mérite, during World War I for his actions at the Battle of Caporetto, where he led a small force to capture 9,000 Italian prisoners and 81 artillery pieces in a single day. At the start of World War II, Rommel commanded the 7th Panzer Division during the invasion of France in 1940. His division moved so fast that it became known as the Ghost Division, because even German headquarters frequently lost track of its position. In February 1941, Rommel was sent to North Africa with the Africa Corps to prevent the collapse of the Italian position in Libya. Within 2 weeks of his arrival, he launched an offensive that drove the British back across the entire length of Libya, catching them completely off guard and nearly reaching Egypt. Over the next 18 months, Rommel repeatedly outmaneuvered larger and better supplied British forces across the Western Desert, winning engagements at Gazala, Tobruk, and Mersa Matruh through a combination of speed, deception, and relentless aggressive action. What made Rommel uniquely dangerous was his personal command style. He led from the front, driving to the most critical point of any battle and making decisions in minutes that his opponents took days to process. British commanders repeatedly found that by the time they had formulated a response to Rommel's last move, he had already made 3 more. Hitler promoted Rommel to Field Marshal following the capture of Tobruk in June 1942, making him the youngest Field Marshal in the German army at the age of 50. His advance was finally halted at the First Battle of El Alamein in July 1942, when supply shortages prevented further progress. At the Second Battle of El Alamein in October 1942, General Bernard Montgomery's reinforced 8th Army broke through the Axis line, and Rommel was forced into a retreat that ended with the final Axis defeat in North Africa in May 1943. Rommel was recalled to Germany before the final collapse and appointed to command Army Group B in France in 1944, responsible for defending against the Allied invasion. On July 17, 1944, his staff car was attacked by Allied aircraft, and Rommel was severely wounded. His name was later connected to the July 20th plot to assassinate Hitler, and he was given the choice between a public trial and suicide. On October 14, 1944, Rommel took his own life with a cyanide capsule. He was given a full state funeral. The Allies mourned him almost as much as the Germans did. Number 1. Otto Skorzeny. If Rommel was the most dangerous general on the conventional battlefield, Otto Skorzeny was the most dangerous German commander anywhere else. Born in 1908 in Vienna, Austria, Skorzeny joined the Waffen-SS at the start of the war and served in the Balkans campaign and the invasion of the Soviet Union before being selected to lead Germany's Special Operations Forces in 1943. His first major operation became one of the most audacious missions of the entire war. In July 1943, Italian dictator Benito Mussolini was overthrown and imprisoned by the new Italian government on a mountain plateau at Gran Sasso in the Apennines, 6,500 feet above sea level, guarded by 200 Italian carabinieri and considered completely inaccessible. Hitler ordered Skorzeny to rescue him. On September 12, 1943, Skorzeny led a force of 90 SS paratroopers in 12 gliders onto the narrow rocky plateau, landed without a runway, overwhelmed the guards without firing a single shot, and flew Mussolini out in a small Fieseler Storch aircraft from a takeoff strip barely 100 meters long. The entire operation took 4 minutes. The rescue of Mussolini made Skorzeny famous across the world and earned him the Knight's Cross from Hitler personally. His second major operation was even more alarming to the Allies. During the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, Skorzeny led Operation Greif, in which German soldiers dressed in American uniforms and driving captured American vehicles infiltrated behind Allied lines to spread confusion, change road signs, cut communications, and gather intelligence. The operation caused panic throughout the Allied rear areas. Rumors spread that Skorzeny's men had orders to assassinate General Dwight Eisenhower himself. Allied security became so concerned that Eisenhower was confined to his headquarters for weeks, and every American checkpoint in France was placed on maximum alert. Skorzeny never made it to Eisenhower, but the chaos his operation created across the entire Allied rear was disproportionate to the small number of men involved. After the war, Skorzeny was tried at the Nuremberg trials for his role in Operation Greif, but was acquitted after a former British SOE officer testified that the use of enemy uniforms was a common practice on both sides. Skorzeny escaped from an internment camp in 1948 and fled to Spain, where he lived openly under his own name, running a successful engineering business and consulting for various governments and intelligence agencies. He died in Madrid in 1975 at the age of 67, never having faced justice for his wartime activities. Skorzeny was the most dangerous German general of World War II, not because of the size of the forces he commanded, but because of what he proved was possible. He showed that a small, determined, precisely planned operation could achieve results that entire armies could not. The Special Forces doctrine used by every military in the world today traces a direct line back to the operations Otto Skorzeny conducted between 1943 and 1945. And there you have our list of what we think were the 5 most dangerous German generals of World War II. We hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and don't forget to like today's video. Subscribe to the channel as an offering to the gods of the algorithm. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.